Okay, the off-grid amateur here, as requested by some of the current owners of the Amicus Smokeless Fire Pits. I'm also the creator of the Amicus Smokeless Fire Pit. I'm going to shoot a video on how to modify your existing Amicus so that it's a single unit, or you can carry it as a single unit without sacrificing the modular function. Right here, we've got 4 of the Amicus Juniors, but I'll be making the modifications to this Amicus Original to make it a single unit. So what you're going to need for the project, you're going to need a hand riveting tool, a tape measure, a drill with an 1/8 inch drill bit. You're going to need 3 5/16 hex head bolts, and these are 3/4 of an inch long, and 3 5/16 lock washers. These are number 6 flat washers, 6.5 inch door pull, 1/8 inch steel rivets. Okay, if you buy these at the orange big box store, this would be the medium size. And you're going to need T-nuts. These are the kind they use in furniture. It's marked T-nuts. These are 5/16 as well, and wouldn't hurt to have a Sharpie. Now, for those of you that want to use the riv nuts like I did in the video, you'll need to purchase a kit. It has a riv nut tool, and it comes with an assortment and different sizes of riv nuts. However, this particular kit alone is $50. So if you're not going to want this after the project, that's why I've come up with this particular method of using these T-nuts or furniture nuts along with these bolts and lock washers to basically do the same thing as what these riv nuts did for connecting the upper and lower section together so it can be carried as one unit. Also, you're going to need, if I didn't mention it in the previous segment, 6.5 inch door pull. These are available in that orange DIY improvement store, home improvement project store. And you're going to need one of these. This is a what they call a step bit. Some people call them unibits. And basically this allows you to drill in sheet metal and gradually step up in size. And it'll become clear later in the video why you need a bit like this. And one other tool that I didn't mention before, you're going to need a set of sheet metal snips. The regular, I think the yellow, that's the color code yellow. It cuts straight lines. The green and red are for going different directions. But that's going to be necessary for this leg that nests down inside the pan. After you've drilled the holes, which will become clear later in the video, you're going to have to trim a little bit off of the bottom of this so that the legs will be allowed to push in and clear the T-nut or furniture nut or the riv nut, whichever you choose to install. It'll be able to clear the bottom of the pan so you can push it off of that particular pin that holds it in place, because these legs nest down inside the groove that's in this pan. So just remember that you'll need these snips to trim about 3/8 to 1/2 inch off the bottom of it. Okay, so here at the position of one of these 3 legs, I measured in. This is 3.5 inches across, so splitting the difference is 1 3/4. And then I came down like 7/8 of an inch. And that is where we're going to drill our 1/8 inch pilot hole. Once those holes are drilled, we will also expand the size of that hole using that step or unibit that I showed you earlier. Oops. Okay, and here we've got the mark laid out right here. Okay, and what I've done is I've also added a small vice grip. And the vice grip is to basically lock these legs into position so that when I'm drilling these holes, there's no shifting going on once I've got them lined up. It would also be helpful if you lined up the seam from the upper and lower section on the original drum. That way, when you're assembling it or disassembling it, when you're trying to put it back together, you'll know which pin aligns with which hole on the corresponding leg. So it doesn't create an alignment issue if they aren't exactly the same distance around the circumference to each other, or height even. So that allows for a margin of error. Alright, I've drilled the pilot hole 1/8 inch in all 3 legs, And I'm ready to start using this this step bit. Now this thing has marks on it that tell you the diameter at each point. I don't know if it's going to focus in well enough that you can see that, but on that step bit you're going to see those marks. And what we want to do, if you're going to use the bolts and without having to buy that riv nut kit, to use the bolts and the T-nuts, that's going to be a 5/16 to start. So you'll drill through both layers of steel as I did with the 1/8 inch bit, and you'll drill it out to 5/16, just big enough for the 5/16 by 3/4 inch long bolt to penetrate through this opening. Okay, so here I've drilled the hole just large enough for this 5/16 bolt to stick through. All right, and you're going to repeat that process on all 3 of the upper section legs, drilling through both layers of steel at the same time. Now, if you're going to use one of these riv nuts, okay, which have the threads inside, and you're going to buy that riv nut kit, or maybe you already have one, then you're going to want to drill this hole to the diameter all the way through that this riv nut will fit inside both layers of steel, snug, just not too sloppy. But when you use the riv nut, this portion right here at the bottom that has these ribs, that's what expands around that layer of steel. And you're going to want to do that separately so that this leg doesn't bond the two together. You just want this riv nut to attach to the pan portion, not the legs. Oh, here we go. Okay, so we have these T-nuts, and out of the package they have these little spikes that are on them, and what they're designed to do is to go and penetrate into like wood to lock them into position. But what you're going to want to do with that is you're going to either want to flatten or remove those spikes. I have chose to flatten them, and that way they'll nest tightly up against the side of the Amicus Fire Pit, just like a riv nut would. Okay. Now on the corresponding holes in the legs, after you've flattened this riv nut, you're going to want to drill that out a little bit larger than what was necessary for the 5/16 bolt. Just make it large enough with that step bit so that will nest down in or penetrate through that opening, because that's going to be necessary for your Amicus legs to snap onto these locator pins to make it carry as one unit. But yeah, that would be the next step. Repeat that on all 3 legs, and you should be good to go with these T-nuts as locator pins. It only takes a couple more steps on the bit that I have, but you're going to want to do it one at a time to make sure that you don't oversize the hole there. You don't want that. You want it to just fit in there just big enough that it slides on easy, but it doesn't wobble around. Okay, so this is what it's going to look like. This is the 5/16 by 3/4 bolt sticking through this T-nut, and on this side we've got the head of the bolt and a lock washer. Lock washer is going to keep that from spinning loose, and I'm going to try it with these threads sticking out just to add a little bit longer of a stud for that hole in the upper section leg to nest over. So we're going to finish all 3 of these, finish drilling out the holes and expanding those on the upper section, and then I'll show you how much you're going to need to cut away. When I was talking about that pan leg, or that upper section leg nesting, it nests down in here. So we have to trim off enough of that upper section leg that it'll clear this groove and slide out uninhibited. And we'll just pull a measurement from the center line of this stud down to the bottom, just to give ourselves, and maybe give ourselves an 1/8 inch margin, just so it'll move freely off of there. Now, measuring down to the pan, to the center line of this bolt, just lifting up slightly, I'm going to shorten those legs so that they're no longer than 3/4 inch from the center line of the holes that are in the upper section legs. And coming over here, that's just going to look like this. I'm going to line up the 3/4 mark on the center line of that hole, and that shows us how much, about 1/2 inch of material that we're going to remove from the upper section legs. And you know, you can start with 1/2 inch. It's always better to go a little bit shy of what you think you need, because you can always remove more. But if you cut it too much and remove too much material, you can't really put it back on. So you want to take off just enough so that it'll clear. Okay, using this combination or tri-square, I lined it up and scored a line with the Sharpie. So that's going to give me a cut line that's even and consistent with the bottom of the leg. So we're going to go ahead and remove that material using the snips.